She's the 22nd governor of the state of Washington, and I missed a real opportunity. A couple of years ago, I mentioned that we should change the state song to Louie Louie. And after a couple of years of talking to her, she finally said, well, give me a bill and I'll sign it. And boy, I messed up because I didn't get that bill ready, and she's going to be with us just a few more months. But a real courageous governor in her second term. She's a former chair of the National Governors Association. Lots and lots of accomplishments, and you know what they are. Please welcome Governor Chris Gregoire.
Let me just say, well, thank you for the great relationship that we have had over the last 2 terms while I've been in office. And I'm telling you, my favorite song, anytime I go anywhere, whether it's my birthday or whatever, is Louie Louie. If you had got it to my desk, I would have signed it. How many of you know what the Washington State song is? See? How many of you know what Louie Louie is? See? I actually do know the Washington State song. I learned it at Girls' Day, but I am not going to sing it for you this morning. It's your treat from me to you. I want to start with some comments, but before I do, it's a very difficult day for us today. If you haven't already heard, I got a call at 2 a.m. from the chief of the Washington State Patrol. We lost an officer. The last officer we lost was 10 years ago. It's just a tragedy. It was one of those so-called that I advise every graduating class there is no such thing as a routine stop. And unfortunately, he was shot and killed in the line of duty. So all of my state patrol, I got to tell you, I have the greatest respect for, and I love each and every one of them. To find that they have lost one of their own is a very sad day in the state of Washington. So I ask you to keep all of them in your hearts and in your prayers and your thoughts, and most particularly the family of this fallen officer today, because it is a very heavy day for all of us in state government. So let me talk a little bit about where we are, if I might. You all know better than I, in some respects, that the recession has taken a huge toll on state government, on local government, on our families, on our small businesses in particular across our state. And as I've been governor for 7 years, I tell you, that first term looks a whole lot much better to me than the second term does. But I am very proud, as I'm going to leave office at the beginning of next year, to share with you the work that we have done together, literally over the last 2 terms, and that is the kind of services that we give to our folks who need long-term care. The results of which is there's a recent national report by AARP that really commends us on the work that we have done, and in fact says we are the second best state for both quality and scope of long-term care, and that's because of you and your advocacy, which is why you're here today. So while we're in tough times, take heart at the good work that you've been able to accomplish. We really fundamentally have a lot more work to do. We need to ensure that senior citizens, whether they're in home or in adult family homes or whatever they are able to find the kind of care that they need and deserve to live out their lives with dignity and respect in a manner which they choose. And they do so to live out those final days in really good health, good heart, and much happiness. After 4 years of plunging revenue forecasts, we finally have a little glimmer of good news that has happened this year. But let me just tell you from my vantage point, and I track this daily now, what I'm seeing happening to the economy in our state. We have never had more good news from the aerospace industry than what we've had over the course of the last year in the history of Boeing and the aerospace suppliers in our state. Not only does it mean good jobs now, but it means good jobs for many, many years to come. Each thing we have done has allowed us to get yet something more. So last year we set a record in terms of the volume of orders from any one individual airline, Southwest, only to be overridden by another record this year, by another set of orders that is greater than that. So you take that together with the tanker, with Federal Express order, and on top of all of that, the launch of the 787, Poseidon, and so on, and you can see we're well on our way to many, many years. And now with the contract between the machinist and the company, it really is a partnership now. I remember as a kid growing up, Boeing to me was more like family. Somewhere along the line, the family broke up. The family, I can tell you, is back together. We're all working together as one Washington to make sure that that industry flourishes. International trade is booming. Our ports are up 30% year over year. Agriculture's doing well. Life sciences, global health. But the recovery is really quite fragile. If Greece was to default, if we had a banking crisis in Italy or Spain, it would have a domino effect. It would hit us hard, and we would clearly go backwards. Absent that, we are on our clear road to recovery. Congress set us back dramatically last summer, as you all know. We're a sales tax state. Consumer confidence is critical to us. So when Congress messed up royal in August by almost putting us for the first time in history in default, that took our consumer confidence to its knees in Washington State. We went from fairly flat to $1.4 billion revenue forecast down. Now, thank goodness, when they messed up again in November, people had become a bit resilient. I don't know if that's good news or bad news, but the fact of the matter is we didn't see consumer confidence go down again, but we still haven't recovered, and that's what really small business needs in terms of consumer confidence for them to recover. So until that confidence gets back, we're still going to see small business struggle. Now, some have suggested, you can see editorials today, we just haven't cut enough. We just haven't cut enough. Let's be mindful. The entire budget for the state of Washington is about $32 billion. In the last 3 years, we've cut $10.5 billion. So how much is enough? And what is the result of those $10.5 billion in cuts? The new forecast, however, has given us some good news. Yes, we have about $100 million in better revenue forecasted than what was projected last November. But since Congress has now extended the tax deduction, and since it's extended unemployment benefits, had that been known by our forecaster, it would have resulted in another $100 million to the good in the forecast, which we will see in June. For reasons, some of which escape me, we're seeing that our enrollments are down. I don't know why our enrollments in K through 12 are down. I do know why they are, however, in Disability Lifeline or the old GAU program. The results of all of that, that's put $333 million to the good. So they have now $440 million more than what I had when I came out with my budget in November. So it's good news. They did do some work in December at my request in the short session, a special session, but they've still got about a $1.1 billion problem to solve. Now, having said that, that's because I think they have to leave a decent reserve. Now, whether they do or not is still a question mark. And they'll want to get out of town, but they can't get out of town, get a June forecast, and come right back into town and have to make cuts again. So what they leave in reserve will be critical. Sometimes, as I mentioned to you, I hear that we haven't cut enough. Many of you don't know that since the recession began in 2008, we have been in a no-win situation. When you have a recession like what we've experienced, the worst recession in history, the demands for social services dramatically go up at the same time that our revenue dramatically goes down. That's the crisis that we have found ourselves in. Medicaid costs alone have gone up 23%. Now, have we managed our Medicaid inflation? I want you to know that we have. Our Medicaid inflation rate is just over 2%, which is among the best in the country. The rest are experiencing about 8%. So we together are doing a good job, but still you can't absorb that kind of inflation when your revenues are going down. We have cut more than $500 million in long-term care, DV, and mental health. We've cut our public schools by 26%, our community colleges by the same amount, our four-year universities by 46%. So to say that we've not cut enough, when I think we have now cut to the core of what is fundamental responsibility of state government, I just do not agree with it all. Some have said, well, you need to reform. That's really what you need to do. You need to reform before you do anything else. The reforms that we have put in place over the last 3 years are historic, so I'd like to put it in perspective. The fact of the matter is, we transformed our workers' compensation system this last year, more than has ever been done in the 100-year history of that program, saving our businesses about $1 billion over 4 years, and letting our workers who've been injured get back to work sooner than they otherwise would. We have not wasted the crisis. We have managed to reform our unemployment insurance this last year to save businesses about $300 million. And let me tell you the result. We are now rated as one of the most sound unemployment insurance trust funds in the country. In the country. Most of the states, well over 50%, have gone bankrupt in their insurance trust fund, have had to borrow from the federal government. So when we come out of the recession, they will have to pay back with interest, they will have to replenish the trust fund, they will have to continue to make the payments. Who do you think bears that responsibility and go to business? While Washington State is sitting with the best trust fund in the country. Now, I can't say the best, there are 2 other states that are similar to us. Frankly, not very many people live in those 2 states, so I'm very proud of the fact with a highly populated state of 6.7 million, we have the most sound trust fund in America. We reformed our pension system to save about $7.6 billion over the next 25 years. We are now ranked one of the most sound public pension systems in America. We've consolidated 5 state agencies. We've closed 4 prisons, a juvenile facility, an RHC for the developmentally disabled, to bring them back into our communities where they can be served. And the last time, for perspective, that a major institution was closed in Washington State was when Dan Evans was governor, Northern State Hospital. That puts in perspective. So we've adopted a user pay policy for our state parks and for our adult family homes. So to those who say we have not reformed, again, I would say, oh yes, we have. So with the additional about 430 to 440 million, the question becomes whether they have to do what I had to do and recommend in November, which was to say, I think we ought to go out, I think we ought to ask the public for a half penny in the sales tax. I know it's regressive, but what I find regressive is what we're doing to our safety net. I find that more regressive. What we're doing to education for our kids, that's more regressive.